Hey, what's up guys? This video is for section 8-9 and this video is going to cover how to solve quadratic equations when you guys have a perfect square trinomial. I did a short video yesterday for my students so they know how to factor perfect square trinomials, and factoring is down here when you guys have perfect square trinomials. But today we are going to look at how to solve a quadratic equation when you guys have a perfect square trinomial. So let's go ahead and look at the section down here. We want to solve for a specific variable. Notice that every single equation, it has an exponent of 2. So number 19 all the way to 29. Yes, you are missing some problems, but you guys check the exponents that we have. We have a square, we have a square. The highest exponent in every single problem that you guys see on the screen, it has a square. So the degree is 2. So that means that it is a quadratic equation. Now, what is a perfect square trinomial? Like I said on my previous video on how to factor perfect square trinomials, I do explain what that is. So today, I'm just going to show you guys how to solve. Now, even though I have those 4 questions highlighted, I'm going to jump around because I'm going to show you guys how to solve those quadratic equations when you guys have parentheses and when you guys do not have parentheses. I'm also looking at 26 and I do like that one, so I'm going to also do number 26 for you guys. But let's go ahead and start with number 29. 29, notice that we do have a binomial square. You guys have k plus 2, that's a binomial with a square, and it equals 16. Well, you guys can solve by using the square root property. Now, this is when you guys have a binomial inside the parentheses with a square, and you guys want to solve for the variable inside of the parentheses. So the square root property, how do you use that? You guys can use it to cancel the square that you guys have right here, because the square root is the opposite of squares. So I'm going to take the square root of this side, so the square root and the square cancels, and I'm going to cancel those two right now. The square root and the square cancels, and you guys will keep the k plus 2. Now, there's a rule when you guys are solving an equation, no matter what equation, whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So if you guys take the square root of the left side, you guys also have to take the square root of the right side. Now, I'm going to bring down my binomial, k plus 2. Notice that I don't have anything else because the square root and the square cancels. But on the other side, notice that we do have a perfect square number. 16, the square root of 16 is 4. But when you guys are solving, and this is very important when you guys are solving a quadratic equation, when you guys are solving and you guys are using square roots, you guys need to keep your 2 options that you guys can have for the square root. This is what I mean. What is the square root of 16? Well, it can be a positive 4 or it can be a negative 4, because the definition of square roots is when you guys have the square root of 16, you are looking for a number that you multiply by itself 2 times, and it has to give you guys that number back. So positive 4 times positive 4, that is positive 16. But if you also multiply negative 4 times negative 4, that also give you guys positive 16. So you guys have 2 options. When you guys are solving and you're taking the square root of a number, you guys have a positive and a negative option. What does it mean? Well, it means that you guys have 2 different numbers on this side. You guys have a positive 4 and a negative 4. So now you guys need to separate 2 equations. You guys need to make that equation that you guys have into 2. So I'm going to separate here and over here. So it's going to look like this. I have my 2 equations already written in on the screen. You guys have the k plus 2 equals the negative. So there's the negative 4, and k plus 2 equals positive 4. Now you guys have a linear equation. You guys notice a k, it has an exponent of 1, so you guys can solve like a regular linear equation. So I'm going to solve both equations. And for one answer, we get k equals negative 6, and the second answer, k equals 2. So our answers, the values for k, we are solving for k. You guys have 2 different options, 2 different answers. K can equal negative 6 or k can equal 2. Now, those brackets you guys have on the screen, you guys can use those to write down your answers because we have 2 answers of the same variable. Do not use parentheses, because when you guys have 2 numbers with a comma inside parentheses, that's an ordered pair. That means you guys have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. Do not use parentheses. We need to use brackets. So number 29, we got this answer. Now this one here is a little bit different, because if you guys think about what's going to happen on the long run when you guys take the square root, well, the square root of 3 is going to be a decimal, but I'll explain what to do when that happens. So first, let's go ahead and take the square root on both sides because I want to cancel the square. So the square root and the square cancels, but I do take the square root of the 3 over here. So I bring down the h plus 9 because the square root and the square cancels. On the other side, first of all, guys, remember you need a plus and a minus because we are going to take the square root. But the number 3, the right hand, the number inside the radical, is not a perfect square number. We do not know on top of our heads what is the square root of 3. It's going to be a decimal. And to be more exact, you guys who have a rational number, or not rational, irrational number, a decimal that keeps going and going and going and never ends. So when this happens, you guys do not need to use a calculator, okay? You guys are going to keep your answers in radical form. So you guys keep the radical, you guys keep the square root. So you guys just bring down the square root of 3 because we don't know what that is and we don't want to use decimals. So you keep it as a radical. Now you guys are going to separate your two numbers, square root of 3. There's a positive and a negative. So you make two different equations. And notice that I do have an equation with a negative square root of 3 and a positive square root of 3. So I made two equations from this because I have a plus and a minus. Now I am going to solve the first one. I'm going to do this one by one because you guys need to understand how do you guys solve when you guys have a radical. So first I need to subtract 9. I'm looking at the first equation. Subtract 9 over here. So we know that the 9 cancels. You guys bring down the h. Now these two terms right here, these are not like terms. Imagine that you guys have like terms like an x plus an x or 2y plus 3y. They have the same variables. Well, when you guys have radicals, in order to combine, you guys need to have the same radical. Here we have a radical square root of 3 and it's negative, but this one doesn't have a radical. So that means that you guys cannot combine, you guys cannot add or subtract. How do you actually write down your answer? Well, you guys bring down the integer, the number with no radical, so the negative 9, and then you guys bring down the radical, minus square root of 3. That's it. You guys have an answer of negative 9 minus square root of 3. I know it looks weird, but that's your exact answer. That is your radical form. If you guys want to use a calculator, you can actually type in the calculator negative 9 minus square root of 3, and it's going to give you guys an answer in a decimal form. But we're not looking for the decimal, so we keep it as this. That is your answer. The next one, same thing. You guys subtract 9 from both sides, cancels right here. So you guys will have the h equals, and you guys cannot combine these two, the negative 9 and the positive square root of 3. So you guys bring down the negative 9 plus square root of 3. Now notice that those two answers are kind of the same, not identical. They're almost the same thing. The only difference is the minus and the plus in between. So one way you guys can actually write down your answer, you can have h equals negative 9 plus or minus. Notice I'm putting the two signs together, the plus and the minus. And we keep the square root of 3. So my answer for h is right here. Number 21, I'm going to try this one, and it is the last one I'm going to show you guys how to solve when you guys have parentheses. The next two do not have a parenthesis. But notice that we have equal to 0 here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the square root of the left side, the square root of the right side. You guys cancel the square roots and the square. So you guys bring down the 1/2 t minus 1 equal to, now you guys take the square root of 0. Now you guys actually know the square root of 0. The square root of 0 is 0. Now let me just write down the plus and the minus. Plus, minus, because every time you guys take the square root of a number, you guys need a plus and a minus. But we know the square root of 0 is 0. But pay attention to this part, guys, right here. Is 0 negative or positive? Neither. So what that means, you guys do not need the plus and the minus. So I'm going to rewrite that equation with no plus or minus. So I am not using that sign anymore right here. So we only have one equation, not two, because we have just a 0. So I'm going to start solving for that t value. I'm going to add 1 to both sides right here. So I get 1/2 t equals 1. I'm going to get rid of the fraction. I'm going to multiply by the denominator. So this cancels right here. The 1t, I don't need that 1 next to the t. I just put a t here and I multiply 1 times 2, which is 2. Now in this case, we only have one answer. Now you guys can put your brackets right here, and you guys can put a 2 and you guys close the brackets. That's okay, you guys can do that, but we only have one type of answer. You guys have t equals 2 because you guys have the square root of 0. It's not positive or negative, so we didn't make 2 equations. And I am jumping to number 19 because this one doesn't have a parenthesis, but it's going to be a perfect square trinomial where you guys do not have a GCF, greatest common factor. So I'm going to do this one, and then I'll do another one where you guys do have a GCF. But notice, first of all, it is a quadratic equation because we have a squared here. So we need to get everything on one side. I don't have any parentheses, so I'm not going to start using the square root yet, but or maybe we don't have to use square roots, but I'll show you guys a way to solve. So I need to get everything to one side. So I am going to add 49 to both sides. That's going to give me a 0 on the right side, and that's what we want. We want a 0 on one of the sides of the equation. So I'm going to bring down the 4k squared. I'm going to bring down the minus 28k, the plus 49, and this cancels, so you put a 0 because negative 49 plus 49 is 0. Now look at the trinomial. In that trinomial, the first coefficient is a perfect square number. The last coefficient is a perfect square number, and you guys can factor the perfect square trinomial. How do you guys do that? Well, remember, you guys put 2 parentheses right here, equal to 0, because we have an equation. You guys take the square root of 4, so that's 2. You guys keep a k, only 1, because remember, if you guys multiply using distributive property, you need to get the k squared back. So I just need a k right here. I put the 2, because that is the square root of 4, 2, and the k. I'm going to take the square root of 49. That is going to be 7 and 7. Now remember that when you guys have a perfect square trinomial, you guys are going to use the sign in the middle. So you put a minus right here and a minus over here. Now there's another tip that I want to give you guys. If you think you guys have a perfect square trinomial, make sure that both numbers are perfect square numbers, and this sign, the last sign, has to be positive. No matter what, it has to be positive, okay? And if it's negative, then it's not a perfect square trinomial. Sometimes they try to trick you, so you think it is, but it's not because it has a negative on the last coefficient. I do want to check if I get the term in the middle. You don't really have to, but it's a good idea to check. So I'm going to go multiply. I will multiply the middle terms. Negative 7 times 2k, that's negative 14. These two terms, 2k times negative 7, that's negative 14. And I forgot the k, so you guys put the k right here. Combine those two terms and we do get negative 28k. So notice, we do get the term in the middle, negative 28k. Okay, so I'm going to erase that because, like I said, guys, you don't really need to check, but I just want you guys to see that you guys can check and you guys make sure that you guys get the term in the middle. So at this step, instead of using square roots, notice that we have 2 parentheses equal to 0. And they're multiplying each other. So that means that we can use the 0 product property. So I'm going to take the first parenthesis, 2k minus 7 equal to 0. The second parenthesis, 2k minus 7 equal to 0, and I'm going to solve. So I'm going to solve the first equation. Plus 7 over here, cancels, 2k equals 7, divide by 2, and we get an answer. This turns into 1 right here. K equals 7 over 2. It is positive 7 over 2. You guys solve for k. But guess what, guys? This equation right here is the same thing as the first equation. So your answer is going to be the same answer. 7 over 2. We have 2 answers that are equal to each other. So we have the same answer repeating twice. Do you guys have to write it down twice? No, guys. Since we only have the same answer twice, I just put a 7 over 2, and you guys are done with the answer. And the last one I'm going to show you guys, notice the trinomial here. You have 50b squared plus 20b plus 2. You guys can actually factor out a 2. Greatest common factor. So before you guys try to factor out or factor the perfect square trinomial, you take out a 2. When you guys take out a 2, I forgot to put it equal to 0 here. You guys are going to divide every coefficient by 2. So 50 divided by 2, that's 25b squared. 20 divided by 2, that's 10b. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. Look inside of the parentheses. You guys need to check the trinomial. It might be a perfect square trinomial. So this number is a perfect square number. This one is a perfect square number. We do have a plus here. So I think it is a perfect square trinomial. So I bring down the 2. I put my 2 parentheses right here equal to 0. And I'm going to take the square root of 25. That is a 5b. And you put a 5b over here. Square root of 1. That's 1. 1. And you guys use the sign in the middle. Plus over here. Plus over here. This one and this one over here. Now you guys can check. If you multiply the terms in the middle, 1 times 5b, that is 5b. Keep that in your head. Multiply this one right here, 5b times 1, that is 5b. So 5b plus 5b is 10b. You guys can write it down if you want, but I just show you guys how to check if you get the term in the middle. So now, everything right here is multiplying each other, including the 2. You guys have 2 times the binomial times another binomial equal to 0. So when you guys are multiplying anything and it equal to 0, you guys can put everything equal to 0. This is the 0 product property. So you guys are going to take the 2, equal that to 0. You're going to take the 5b plus 1, equal that to 0. And the 5b plus 1 again, equal to 0. So guess what? This here, 2 equals to 0. False. Not true. So you guys don't need to worry about that. That's not an answer because it's false. But now, the one in the middle, you guys are going to solve for b. Subtract 1 from both sides. You guys have 5b equal to negative 1. You guys divide by 5 right here. Turns into 1. So b equals negative 1 over 5. And like I mentioned, guys, this equation is identical to the one we did. So you guys are going to have the same answer down here. You guys can put a comma, negative 1 over 5. You don't have to write it down twice. You guys can put brackets, negative 1 over 5. That is your answer. The answer is actually repeating 2 times, okay? So you guys have negative 1 over 5. So this video, it does show you guys how to solve a quadratic equation by using perfect square trinomials or by using the square root property, right? So I want you guys to practice. I want you guys to also watch my other videos. If you guys have a question, you guys can watch my long version of this lesson. And if you guys like my videos, you guys can click the like button. You guys can also subscribe to my channel. If you guys know anyone that can actually use my videos, you guys can tell them, and they can also subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys later.